Commander Thexval had served with humans for 5 cycles. He'd learned their patterns. They asked questions, challenged assumptions, suggested alternatives. Sometimes annoyingly so. Their input had saved the coalition forces more times than he could count. So when Lieutenant Sarah Martinez sat through the entire battle briefing without saying a word, his scales prickled with unease. The hegemony forces have fortified the canyon, General Korvac explained, gesturing at the holographic terrain. Our scouts report heavy plasma artillery here, and here. We'll send the main force through the northern pass while a smaller unit creates a diversion to the south. Murmurs of approval rippled through the assembled officers. It was a classic strategy tested across 1,000 worlds. Thexval watched Martinez. The human sat perfectly still, eyes fixed on the display. Her coffee, that toxic stimulant humans required, sat untouched and cooling. "Lieutenant Martinez," Thexval prompted. "Your thoughts?" "No thoughts, Commander." Her voice was flat, professional. "The plan is sound." Every scale on Thexval's body stood on end. In 5 cycles, he'd never heard a human describe any plan as sound without suggesting at least minor improvements. The briefing continued. Attack vectors were assigned. Supply lines established. The operation would commence at dawn. As officers filed out, Thexval intercepted Martinez. "Lieutenant." "A word." She stopped, turned. Her expression was carefully neutral, another warning sign. Human faces were usually animated, broadcasting their thoughts like beacons. "You have concerns about the operation," he said. "Not a question." "The plan is sound," she repeated. "Sarah." He used her given name, a gesture of trust between them. "I've seen you argue for 20 minutes about the optimal angle of attack for a supply raid. You once redesigned our entire communication protocol because you thought the beep frequency was annoying. Now you're silent about a major offensive." Something flickered in her eyes. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" "Always." She glanced around, ensuring they were alone. "The plan is sound. Textbook, even. Exactly what any reasonable military force would execute given the terrain and intel. But the hegemony has our playbook. They've studied coalition tactics for decades. They know exactly what a reasonable military force would do." She pulled out her personal datapad, showing her own analysis. "Look at their artillery placement. It's perfect, if we attack exactly where we're planning to attack." Thexval studied the display. She was right. The enemy positions were ideally placed to counter their strategy. "It's a trap," he breathed. "It's worse than a trap. It's an invitation. They want us to see the obvious strategy. They're counting on us being reasonable." She paused. "During the briefing, I ran 17 alternative approaches. Every single one that follows standard coalition doctrine ends in disaster. Why didn't you speak up?" Martinez's smile was sharp, predatory, distinctly human. "Because I also ran scenarios based on unreasonable tactics. The kind no sane military would attempt." She highlighted a route on the map. Through the canyon's lowest point, where seasonal floods had left unstable ground and magnetic interference played havoc with equipment. "This is suicide," Thexval said automatically. "For hover vehicles and energy weapons, yes. But humans have an saying, sometimes you have to get your boots muddy." She switched to another display. "Old-fashioned chemical projectile weapons aren't affected by magnetic fields. Soldiers on foot can navigate unstable terrain that would swallow a hoverank. And the hegemony? They won't have a single defensive position facing this route because no reasonable force would attempt it." Thexval felt his scales shift color, the Thraxian equivalent of a grin. "How many humans would you need?" "Give me 50. We'll hit their command post while they're watching the northern pass, waiting for an attack that never comes." Within hours, the plan was restructured. The main force became an elaborate feint. 50 humans, armed with primitive projectile weapons and wearing basic combat gear, disappeared into the flooded canyon. The battle lasted 4 hours. The hegemony spent 3 of them waiting for an attack from the north, artillery trained on empty approaches. By the time they realized the coalition's unreasonable strategy, human forces had already disabled their command structure. Later, reviewing the battlefield footage, General Korvac asked Thexval how he'd known to change the plan. "Simple," Thexval replied. "Lieutenant Martinez was quiet during a briefing. When humans stop talking, it means they're thinking. And when they're thinking, he gestured at the captured hegemony positions. It's usually time to worry. From then on, coalition military doctrine included a new rule: if the humans go quiet, ask why. Before it's too late.